Bitcoin jumps back over $100,000, you're going to have a lot of people, who are actually suddenly in favor of it. So it's absolutely an interesting journey that we're going to be on here. And these are the massive tailwinds that people are just ignoring right now. They are not priced into this stock into this asset. They're just not priced into it. And so for those people who have been kind of frustrated and bewildered and surprised by this latest move, well, Bitcoin always has drawdowns and consolidates before it has another, leg up. There's uncertainty in the markets. Markets hate uncertainty. Once that kind of settles out and we get through this little period of uncertainty here, I think that Bitcoin's back to the, off to the races.
James Lavish starts by highlighting something every investor has experienced, the emotional roller coaster of market movement. According to Lavish, it's always about two things: fear and FOMO. Fear of losing what you have and fear of missing out on what you don't. These psychological triggers dominate investor behavior. When Bitcoin starts surging towards six figures, everyone suddenly becomes interested. Should I buy now? They ask, often too late.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
It's just that classic emotional response to the market movement. You have that FOMO and you have the fear, right? You have the pure fear and the fear of missing out. Well, as Bitcoin ripped up over $100,000, everybody was asking me, hey, what's going on with Bitcoin? Should I be buying it now? And I'm like, well, I've been telling you to buy it since it was at 17,000. So I mean, sure, you just always buy a little bit, but why didn't you talk to me when I was raising my fund back 2 years ago when I told you that he was at 19,000, But look, reality is that's just human nature. If you have Black Friday here, Luke, which is that day after Thanksgiving where everybody has the day off, and they go to the stores here and they get all the big sales, or Cyber Monday, the next Monday, they're literally crawling all over each other to get a TV that's been marked down by a few percent. But it's crazy because you have a sale in the stock market and they get scared and like, oh, I don't want to buy it now. You have a big sale on Bitcoin, it's down 30% from its high. And they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should wait. It sounds like it's going to go to 30 again. So, it's just one of those things. It's a natural response. And that's why as investors, it's hard. It's not easy to look at these charts and to think, wow, this really could come back to the $50,000, $60,000 level. If we have a steep drawdown in the overall market, there's always that possibility. And then you stop. And as an investor, you have to stomach this. This is where it's that famous quote from Rothschild, where there's blood in the streets. You should be buying even if it's your own. And so you should be buying even when there's blood if there's blood in the streets, even if it's your own. And that's kind of how you have to stomach it as an investor. But on the flip side of it, it gives you great opportunity to adjust to higher beta positions, because stocks and investments that are more sensitive to the Bitcoin price moves, because you've had that large drawdown, and so now you get the advantage where you can reallocate to some higher beta opportunities, and so that's what you do. You just try to find those spots. It does worry me for some of these smaller companies that are super young and super new and are not revenue generating. The more, real early VC type stuff, that it's harder to gather assets and to get investments in these periods. But That's the nature of that game. Everybody thought a Bitcoin strategic reserve was kind of laughable just, last year. And now it's already signed into law. I mean, it's an executive order. So, you know, things can happen quickly in this world, especially if you get some strong proponents. And Bitcoin jumps back over $100,000, you're gonna have a lot of people, who are actually suddenly in favor of it. So it's absolutely an interesting journey that we're going to be on here. And these are the massive tailwinds that people are just ignoring right now. They are not priced into this stock into this asset. They're just not priced into it. And so for those people who have been kind of frustrated and bewildered and surprised by this latest move, well, Bitcoin always has drawdowns and consolidates before it has another, leg up. There's uncertainty in the markets. Markets hate uncertainty. Once that kind of settles out and we get through this little period of uncertainty here, I think that Bitcoin's back to the, off to the races. My message is to understand how Bitcoin is different. If you don't understand that, keep reading, keep doing your research on it to understand how it is different from all the other cryptocurrencies and why it is a true store of value. Really quickly, the way I see it is that Bitcoin, and you've heard me say this before, I think Michael Saylor says something very similar, but it's backed by 175 terawatt hours of energy, which is the equivalent of 20 full-scale nuclear reactors running 24/7 around the clock. And why that's important is that's what backs this protocol. So it's literally nation state resistant, and that's how safe it is. And so that's why it's a strong store of value. There will never be any more created than 21 million. And it is an extraordinarily secure network that's completely distributed. It's totally, distributed. So it's decentralized.
Lavish shares that because of growing interest in their first fund, which is now closed, they're launching a second fund. This fund will remain evergreen, meaning it's always open to new investors. However, to ensure fairness, only those invested before a private deal is made will be eligible for allocations, thanks to regulatory and structural requirements. This fund structure, Lavish believes, allows more flexibility and better alignment with long-term investors who want to participate in the Bitcoin ecosystem beyond just buying the asset.
Just try not to be scared of the volatility. Embrace it. Embrace the volatility because you can take advantage of it. And have a long-term view on it. And that's how we look at it in our fund. We look at these things that we buy as long-term investments. One of the differences of how we invest versus the typical VCs is that Luke, we're looking for real companies with, real revenues and real profits. That's our meat of what we're investing in. So it's like, we're looking for 3 to 5 year maturity in these plays, typically maybe 2 to 3 years in some of them. The VCs are looking for a 12 to 15 year payout, really. I know they're 10-year funds, but these companies, they take a long time to mature, especially when you have, interim markets like this, and it's difficult for those companies to grow. But, that's why we're so excited, is we see these periods of volatility and then downswing and upswing, and we're super excited about that. And that's exactly why we're launching Fund 2. We were actually approached, Luke, by a couple of family offices who wanted to be in Fund 1, but it was closed. So this second fund is open. It's going to remain open. We're gonna accept investors every single month now. And the only difference between this and this Fund 2 and Fund 1 is that you have to be an investor in this fund before we make the private investments to get allocations to it, because they have to be side pocketed. That's the only way you can do an evergreen fund that's fair for everybody. So, but that's why we remain super excited, and we're optimistic about it. Yeah. So what was signed into executive order was a strategic reserve for Bitcoin that basically said that the U.S. is going to hold to the Bitcoin they already have, and that they've acquired through seizures and from fraud and illicit activities, illicit and illegal activities. So, which is about 200,000 Bitcoin. They sold about 200,000 over the last 10 years. Mind-numbing that they did that, but they basically this executive order that Trump just signed a couple weeks ago said that they won't sell anymore. That's great, but they also don't have a function to buy it without. They don't have a function to buy it outright and using government funds to do that. So it has to stay budget neutral. And that's basically what it said. If they can only acquire if it's budget neutral. Well, how could it be budget neutral? Well, there's a lot of different ways you can do that, but one of the obvious ways is that at the same time that they created the strategic reserve, they also created what's called a digital asset stockpile. And that digital asset stockpile is all the other things. People that are in our space like to call shit coins, but the reality is some of those things do have some function. It's indisputable that things like Solana have some sort of function. I don't know what the function is for XRP, but but you've got other things in there, ETH and Solana, XRP, and maybe some Cardano, whatever it is that they've seized. That's kind of a rounding error compared to the Bitcoin seizures. So they've got those, but they don't have any function to add to those except for through seizures. And so because of that, that they're not going to be adding to those stockpiles. They'll probably be looking to unload them. And that would be an easy way to just sell those and buy Bitcoin at some point. That's one thing.
Lavish sees what most of the market is still ignoring. Bitcoin's biggest tailwinds aren't even priced in yet. He points to macro uncertainty, increasing institutional adoption, geopolitical tensions, and government recognition as key catalysts for Bitcoin's next leg up. Markets hate uncertainty, but once clarity returns, Bitcoin tends to surge. That's the historical pattern, and Lavish expects it to repeat. Please like and subscribe.